Good Shabbos. This week is Parshat Shelach, and in Parshat Shelach we have the story of the Meraglim, the spies who were sent by Moshe and the Jewish people to see how and if they can conquer the land of Israel. And when we read it, you simply break it down into the good guys and the bad guys. The bad guys are the 10 spies who say that we're not able to conquer the land. The people are too strong. The cities are too fortified. We are just like a chagavim. We're like grasshoppers in their eyes because there's nephilim there, there's giants. And then you have Yeshua and Caleb who say, no, we will be able to, we will conquer the land and we will do as God has told us to do. When you read the story carefully, though, you see that there's actually 3 different responses to the spies, and they're telling us that we can't conquer the land. In the beginning, you have Kalev speaking himself, not with Yehoshua, but just Kalev, and he says, "Vayas Kalev esa'amal Moshe." Kalev sort of quiets the people, and he points towards Moshe, and he says, "Olo na'aleh." We can surely go up the Yarash Nasa, and we will inherit it, the land, Ki yachal nuchala, because we are able to. He doesn't mention God. He mentions only that we, the people, will be strong enough to conquer them. Don't worry about the fact that they seem to be very strong and powerful and have fortified cities. We'll be successful. Then, later on in the portion, you have Yehoshua and Kalev speaking together. And at this point, they say it a little differently. They say, "Im chafetz banu Hashem," if God wills it, "v'hevi osana la'aretz hazos," and He'll bring us to this land. "Unisana lanu eretz asher hu zavas chalav v'dvash." He will give us the land which is flowing with milk and honey. And then they go on to say, "But do not rebel against God, and do not fear the people there. Ki lachmeinuhem, they are like our bread. Sar tzilam me'alehem, their shadow or their protection will be removed from them. V'Hashem osanu, and God will be with us. Al tiram, do not be afraid." So this is very different. It's a nuanced approach. They're saying God will remove their protection and God will be with us. But who's going to conquer the land? And we know that the authors of this statement are Yehoshua and Kalev. Yehoshua is the future who's going to, he's the future leader who's going to conquer the land as the general who leads the people into war and conquers city after city till he inherits a good portion of the land of Israel. So they're saying, oh, how is it going to happen? God is going to remove their protection, and then we're going to attack them. And that's exactly what Yehoshua does. If you follow the story of Yehoshua in the next Sefer, the Sefer Yehoshua, the book of Joshua, what happens? The first time they march around the city of Yericho, and they blow the shofar, and the walls collapse, and they win. That's God. But the next time, at the city of Ai, which they conquer, that they fight a regular battle. So there's a mixture of God sort of putting the fear into the people of Canaan because they see miracles and God is on the side of the Jews. And they also put the fear of God as when he sends the spies actually into the city of Yericho. Rachav, the woman who houses the 2 spies that Yehoshua sends, she says, "Oh, we're already trembling and fearful because God has done wonders and miracles for you when He took you out of Egypt." So there's this sense that God is there, God is involved, He removes. But then we have to fight our war, and as I pointed out other times, that's exactly what happens when they fight Amalek. Moshe tells Yeshua, "B'char lanu anashim, go choose men, v'tzevi lachem b'Amalek, and go and fight against Amalek." It's not just God is going to fight your wars. It's not God is going to split the sea and He's going to destroy the Egyptians. You've got to fight your own wars. But I'm standing here on the mountain with my arms outstretched, and you look towards God, and when you look towards God, God will be with you. That's very different than what happens in Egypt. And it sounds very different than what Kalev is really saying. Because Kalev is saying, we will be able. He doesn't mention God at all. Then you have another interesting approach to the story, because later on when this story is recounted in the book of Devarim, it says something else. It says that what happened, that Moshe tells the story about how he sent the spies out, and when they come back and they say, these people are too difficult for us to conquer, it says, "Va'omar aleichem," I said to them, "Lo sartzum lo sirmehen," do not be fearful or tremble before them. Hashem Elohechem Aholech Lufnechem, Hashem, your God, who goes before you, Hu Yilachim Lachem, He will fight with you, just like I did in Egypt. So first of all, it's a strange recounting of the story, because in the original story, we don't have Moshe saying anything. And now all of a sudden, they leave out Yeshua, they leave out Kalev, and it's just Moshe responding. So that's a different issue that has to be dealt with. But the response that Moshe is giving is, Hashem Yilachim Lachem, I will fight for you. That's the exact same thing that happened by the splitting of the sea. God said, Moshe says, Hashem Yilachim Lachem, v'atem tachrishim, God will fight with you, and you be quiet, don't worry. You don't have to do anything. So Moshe's approach seems to be, God will do all the miracles. There's no fighting at all. Yeshua and Kalev together is saying, God will help us, He'll put fear into them, He'll remove their protection, and then we'll conquer the people. Kalev's approach seems to be, no, don't worry, we'll be able to conquer the people on our own. Three very different approaches. What's interesting is that who becomes the future leader of the Jewish people? It's not Kalev who says, don't worry, we'll be strong. It's Yeshua. It's Joshua who seems to say that, no, we have the balance. We believe in God. God could perform miracles. He's our protective force. He's the motivation for us to fight the war. He gives us the confidence to go out to battle. But at the end of the day, we have to actually do the battle. Say, V'ilachim lachem, you have to go out and fight. Yeshua is the one who fights. But Kalev, you would think, you might even understand that he was denying God, because he just said, we were able to. That doesn't seem to be consistent with the whole approach of the Torah, that we always have to believe that God is behind everything that we do. And Kalev doesn't mention God. That's very troubling. And you would think that maybe Kalev was also a sinner and he should be left behind. But it's just the opposite. God tells Moshe that the two people of the spies who will go into the land are Kalev and Yeshua. And at one point, he actually just mentions Kalev by himself. And he says that Avdi Kalev, Ekev Haisaruas Acheresimo, Kalev, because he had a different spirit in him, by Yimale Acharai, and he was in fullness after me. He'll go into the land, he'll go into that land, Vizara Yoshan, and his seed and his descendants will inherit it. So that's really interesting that it focuses specifically on Kalev, doesn't even mention Yeshua. Later on, God says both Yeshua and Kalev will go into the land, and they'll inherit the land. But why does he pick on Kalev? And not only does he pick on Kalev, but he says that Kalev is Vayimale Achrei, will be in fullness after me. He was really in a sense, that Ruach HaCheres, that other spirit, he had the spirit of God within himself. It's really interesting because he doesn't mention God at all. So I think what you have to understand is these three approaches are in a sense three different stages. Moshe represents the past. Moshe understands that the future is Yehoshua and he's going to conquer the land, but his approach and the way he worked and his whole attitude was he was so full of God and so relying on miracles, and that's the way he led the people out of Egypt. That's his approach. And when he says to them, he says, don't worry, Hashem Yilachim Lachem. God will fight with you. But Moshe is not the leader of the Jewish people. Moshe is not the one who's going to take them in and conquer the land. Because maybe Moshe represents an attitude which is fine, but only for its time. At a certain point, we have to be able to take responsibility on our own. And Moshe represents past leadership. Yehoshua, on the other hand, he represents the future leadership. That, yes, God is with us. Hashem Yilachim Lachem, he'll fight, but we have to also, B'char lan Arnashim, V'tzei Yilachim B'Amalek, we have to choose men and fight ourselves. We have to fight our own wars. And that's that balance that we always seek. But Kalev may represent the future, the ideal. Maybe not the future, but the ideal. The ideal is that Yachol Nuchala, that we are able to ourselves. And on the surface, the reason why he can't be the leader that leads the Jewish people into Israel is because that approach sounds like it's arrogant. That approach sounds like it's saying that the power and the strength of my own hands have made this army. It's forgetting God. It's saying we could do everything. But that's not how God saw it, and that's not how Kalev really understood it himself. Because God himself says to Moshe, no, he was milei achari. He was in fullness after me. The ideal is to be able to do it yourself, not to rely on miracles, not to rely on God removing the protection or knocking down the walls of Jericho. No, we could do it ourselves. And as God puts it in our nature, that if we believe we're doing the right thing, if we believe we're following after God, if we have the confidence that we should have, because God is with us, then Yachol Nuchala, God gives us that power. It could be misinterpreted by people thinking he means we'll do it without God, but that's not what he meant, and that is actually the ideal. But that beautiful ideal gets Kalev a chance to enter Israel and to inherit the land, but it doesn't get him a chance to be the actual leader, because that ideal is sometimes missed by the people. We need some nuanced leadership, which needs God and, in a sense, presents God as fighting the wars and doing battle and performing miracles, but at the same time takes achrayus, takes responsibility on his own. So we have that sort of middle of, we can't live in the past. The ideal is beautiful, but it doesn't always translate well to the average person, and we need the Yeshua. We need the Yeshua who's going to lead us. And maybe that's why in this week's Parsha, it says his name was Hoshea ben Nun, and then Moshe calls him Yeshua. And most commentaries understand he added the letter Yud for God. Now, Hoshea means he could save us, but he's also, in a sense, and he has that power within him, but he recognizes that he needs that Yud. He needs the Yud of Hashem's name to be able to be with him and to support him and to be able to promote that idea to the Jewish people so that they never forget that God is really behind everything that we do and all of our successes. Good Shabbos.